Okay, so I want to show you something really cool here. This is RHiggit 2. RHiggit 2 is a suite of tools that basically is there to help you with character animation and setup in LightWave. At its heart is a fully interactive modular rigger that allows you to set up characters nice and quickly and easily. You can, just punch in and rig them up, reposition them, fit them, add new parts as you feel like, customize those parts as you go, choose where they get parented to, so as of course you can, design the layout of your rig nice and quickly and easily. We see that we have all sorts of parts, such as in the spines here, necks, tails, trunks, tentacles, the whole shebang in there. Quick automatically sorted menus to stop you wading through tons and tons of items trying to, parent things together, none of that. And as we can see, the whole thing here just sort of, snaps nicely, goes together. We can just pop in and out of, rigging or edit mode anytime we like to see what things are doing and how well they're functioning. If we're happy with them, if we're not, we can pop back and just continue adding parts and doing whatever we want as and when we want to. It really is this simple. And you just move them around and of course, position things in as you need them to be to fit whatever character you would, have going on. And basically there you have it. Just like that. I mean, that's what, under a minute, and I've got a full, biped rig here set up, ready to go. And it's lovely, it's clean, it's simple, it's highly interactive, and these options for the parts that you have, despite this tiny little unassuming panel here, give you so many options. For instance, legs, you've got different anatomies to choose from, plantigrade, digitigrade, unguligrade, for example, which will give you the different types of leg that you commonly find in different creatures. So of course, you want to do a regular human biped, then you want a plantigrade limb, you want to do a quadruped, then you want a digitigrade or perhaps an unguligrade limb. And you can try them out in your character, work along with them, and each control system is designed to work specifically with the kind of anatomy that the part is using, rather than being a one-size-fits-all sort of approach. And you can just keep going like this, just adding stuff and stuff and stuff as much as you want, adding singles, adding pairs, putting things pretty much anywhere you want. You can have, I'm doing it fairly straightforwardly here. I've got arms, attached to the spine and whatnot, and legs sort of coming off the hip, but there's absolutely no reason, for instance, that I can't go along and, have a pair of legs that are attached to, let's say, the head, shall we? We'll just put a pair of legs up there, and we can very quickly just wait for them to generate there, and let's size them down a bit because they're probably a bit huge to be coming off the head, and let's just have them pointing up. I don't really know what on earth I'm doing here. Let's rig it and see what happens. There we are, it's all in place and everything functions as you'd expect it to, and I mean, just look at it go. It's perfect every time. Solid, dependable, fast, easy. It also allows complete custom control over every single aspect of the rig. So let's just start again with another guy here. We can see that what I just had there, of course, was a bones rig using nulls for the actual goal items and so forth. But you see that we have different options right from the start. So we can have an all bones rig, so of course then the control system is made out of bones and all of the nulls for IK and everything else are made out of bones. This gets you around the problem that you can't select nulls and bones at the same time. Or you can have an entirely nulls based rig where all of the control items are nulls, all of the IK items are nulls, and you have bones strung as a deform rig over the top, which is the optimum for, of course, getting the best deformations out of your characters, which is what we saw in, of course, RHiggit version 1. And otherwise, you choose your style, and otherwise everything functions in exactly the same way, as we can see here. So you can quickly and easily build whatever kind of rig it is that you are wanting to work with. These deform rig driven systems, of course, aren't just good for using here in LightWave because they give you a direct bone to bone chain. There's no in-betweens in these bones. That makes them perfect for export to other applications, whether that's another 3D app like, Maya or whatever, or if you want to send them to game engines such as Unity, you've got a, rig ready to go. You have this one type of rig here. This is the nulls and deforms one. It's good for use in LightWave. It's good for exporting elsewhere. One rig, use it wherever you want. This level of customization, though, doesn't just end there. It's not just about, laying out different limbs and bits and stitching them together. You can also customize the control systems that you want to use. So I'm going to, select this leg here, go to Edit Part. By default, it's been generated in IK, but perhaps I want it as an FK only limb, so I'll set that there, and bingo, the IK is gone, and I'm now transferred to an FK only system on the leg here. But maybe I'm not happy with that because that's not much use. What I really wanted was an IK FK system, so I can just choose that option, and we notice that what we get is a fully auto-snapped IK-FK system where the IK follows the FK whilst we're in FK mode, and then of course we can just throw the conveniently little created switch here and we go directly over to IK mode like this. Probably helps if I show the bones so as we can see exactly what we're doing there. And yeah, there it simply is. You've got, full control over the control systems that you want to use. You can customize every single aspect of your rig and the controls that are laid out for it. Let's take a look at something in the spines perhaps. I'll add a spine here. There we go, very nice. By default it just comes in as a regular old FK spine and there's nothing wrong with that. How about we try something else, such as, well, handles. Handles are great. I've now got this handle appear, and by rotating the single controller there, I get, single handled control over my spine like this. You'll notice, of course, that on the spines options here, there's a thing for handle CPs. That's set to 1. Let's add another spine. Let's give it, 31 vertebra. I'm going to give it 9 handle CPs. Add spine. I'll make that a child of the main root as well. My goodness, I'll just shove it over here for the sake of visibility. We rig the thing, select part of it, edit part, back onto handles here. And we've now got this control system where the control is distributed over these handles and we can manipulate the spine in this sort of a fashion as we like, which is, possibly handy. Maybe it's what you want. You can even get some strange effects out of this. So if I, for instance, come here, I'm just going to select every other controller like that. And let's just have a look from the side, shall we, so as we can see what's happening. Look, so I turn it like this, the whole thing sort of starts to turn, and then it's sort of turning into this paperclip shape there. And if we keep turning, it sort of twists around and it becomes a paperclippy thing. And I get these strange geometric shapes emerging until I get this, look at that, a couple of pentagrams there, so pentagons there and squares. I have no idea what this could be used for in a character animation context. I mean, it's, pretty much ridiculous. But that's also part of the aim of the system, to be open-ended like this. Maybe this has use in, motion graphics or something similar of that nature that you want to set up a weird twisty part control system for. RHiggit 2 doesn't tell you what your rig should be or how you're supposed to use it. You are free to play with so many options and just experiment to see what comes out. You try one system and you don't like it, you hit edit part, and just like that, you've got, what have we got? Spline control. Bingo. And now we've got the whole spine functioning on a spline control method like this. You can have it any way round you want. One of the problems, of course, when it comes to designing, highly functional rigs for characters or whatever else, is the fact that you're not always sure what control system is going to work best for a given part or a given situation or a given shot. And of course, going in and setting up one system, trying it out, ripping it out to try another one, that's a very time-consuming process. With RHiggit 2, it's a couple of clicks and it's done in seconds. If that's not an unbeatable workflow, I can't imagine what is. And of course, if you're not happy with a part because it all went a bit wrong, then you just select it, clear part, and, it goes away. You're then free to go back and, you know, start adding other bits, try those out instead, see what you get. What more could you ask for, right? Well, how's about simplicity? Of course, the ability to customize your control setup in this way means that, you know, if you find complex rigs or lots of controllers intimidating, you don't have to worry about it. You keep the controllers you want, you hide or lose the ones that you don't. Look what we've got here, the good old-fashioned, you know, RH foot setup. Look, I've got the one main goal here, which is, you know, running the IK leg. I've got a single pole item up here, which is controlling the twist of the whole thing, and by default that is in the space of the IK itself. And then you've just got one controller here, which gives you all of your foot action, from, you know, flappy toes to turning on the ball, lifting from the toes like this, and of course the flap back and forth for walk cycles, or tipping side to side when you need to roll the foot onto its edge. It's all just here. One simple, easy controller for all of your major foot action, whilst the entirety of the leg poses from just the IK goal and pole. Using it only on IK, you don't need these controllers then. They're really just there to show. We can get rid of those fellas. And that's it. Just 3 really simple, easy to get on with controls. And of course it's stuff like this that makes the business of character animation so much easier. You know, the whole foot responds to the IK foot system here, pulling and pushing away from itself as it needs to. The toes flexing and peeling off when you get overextension. This makes blocking out your animation incredibly quick and easy. Even if you don't use this, you know, for the final animation, and you come in and you put on, you know, your own little refinements as you're working along. For the purposes of blocking and getting a base motion in there, nothing is faster than this. Speaking of fast, of course, there's another kind of fast that people, you know, want, and that's the speed of evaluation of the rig itself, how fast it computes. You know, complex rigs can often be heavy and run slowly in a scene. We see here that we have a little dude, just, you know, standard sort of biped with, you know, IK on his bits and whatnot. Fairly sort of standard, you know, little character setup here. And he's also, of course, built out of nulls and deforms. So, of course, not only do you have the, you know, control rig itself running, you've also got this deform rig that's having to operate over the top. So this is as constraint heavy as, you know, you get. And what we can see here is that with this terrible little animation that he's doing, I'm cracking 134 frames per second. Now, obviously, of course, this is just the raw rig itself. There's no geometry on here to deform, and, you know, there's clearly not much that I can do in RHiggit about LightWave's deformation speed. You will get that reduce massively when you do have a deforming mesh on. There's no way around that, but it will still run. A little guy like this with a deforming mesh, he'll run about, you know, 30-40 odd frames per second, but look at him, over 100 frames. How about we add some more to the scene, huh? What do we say to that? So here we go, 3 such characters in our scene, and what are we doing there? 30, 40, 42 frames a second with 3 guys in the scene, all of them doing perhaps the worst animation in the world. But, you know, never mind. Look at them go, you know. These rigs are fast. They are really fast. All of these options that RHiggit 2 has in it for using this control method or that control method or whatnot, it's all present in the scene. I mean, if we look in the scene editor at one of these, you know, guys here, we see his actual control structure. You know, you've got all of the IK bits, all of the FK bits, all of this, you know, stuff going on here. You know, these are pretty heavy scenes. There's a lot of guys and a lot of parts to them. But what RHiggit does when it's switching all of these things around, when you're trying out the different control modes, is that it streamlines the rig for you. It doesn't keep the unnecessary weight. It chucks it all down, enabling you to get the fastest responding rigs that are possible for whatever it is that you're trying to set up. And we can even see this in, you know, nice crazy rigs like this fellow. I mean, good grief, what's he got here? Look at all of these arms and legs that we've got going on. It's crazy. He's got the spine, he's got this tail thing, he's got 20 IK limbs, 20 of them you know. And look, 50 odd frames a second we were getting there at one point. Let me just up the frame rate so see how high I can actually get it to. About 24, 25 frames a second, real time on a rig this heavy. Again, notice this is the Nulls and Deforms rig. This is the slowest rig going, and it's got 20 IK limbs, and it's still cracking out almost 25, there you go, 25 frames per second. That's fast. There was, of course, another feature that I've seen lots of users asking for, which is a non-destructive workflow to rigging, which is great. I mean, you know, RHiggit 1 never did it from the start, and this, you know, tradition continues here in RHiggit 2. So if you've got, you know, some little fella animated like this, doing a little walk cycle there, not a particularly brilliant walk cycle, but, you know, it did only take me a couple of minutes, at least it's better animation than we saw in the last example. I can pop into good old RHiggit, and I'll just go back to, you know, fitting mode here. Oh, look, he's playing. Let's stop him playing. Right, go back to 0 there. And we can just make some adjustments. So maybe his knees wanted to be more like this, or, you know, he wanted to fit some other how into, I don't know, whatever mesh he might have been fitted into. His arms more like this, or maybe his whole arm a bit smaller. You get the idea, right? I mean, you know, it can be pretty much any sort of adjustment here, longer spine or whatnot. You pretty much get the idea, I'm sure of it. And when you rig him again, put him back into rig mode like this, we can see, of course, that the animation on him is fully maintained, and of course he now conforms to the new proportions that we had there before. This non-destructive workflow isn't limited to just the fitting of the rig itself. It also works on the control methods. So here what we have is this guy is functioning on IK only legs, that's all he's got, but maybe we thought to ourselves, dang it, I really wish I'd made him IKFK for some reason. You know, you get some point in your animation and it's like, no, he should have been something else, and now I've done him all in IK only and I can't switch out to FK. Well, again, that's not a problem, because we just go into RHiggit, we pick his legs there, edit part, we'll turn them into IKFK legs, set selected. And what do we see? Well, we see that our animation appears to have vanished on the legs. Why? Obviously, because by default here, they're just in FK mode, and the FK doesn't have animation applied to it. It never did. But if we blend him back into IK on both legs, we can see that the IK animation is fully preserved for us there, and we've now got the option to switch back out into FK and continue our animation. So completely non-destructive workflow. Well, I say that, I mean, you know, you've always got the bit where you can remove a part from the rig. There's not a lot you can do to preserve the animation if you delete a limb, but, you know, I think that's fair enough. Incidentally, I should also point out that it's not just, you know, the control systems that are present in RHiggit that are available to you. It's anything in LightWave can be used with this rig. Just like in RHiggit version 1, IK Boost. You take your rig, you set everything to FK mode that disables all of the IK or whatever other controllers. You punch into IKB, and what do you know? All of a sudden, it's IK Boost Areno with exactly the same rig. Of course, the really interesting point about this is that because, of course, what IK Boost does is it just records, you know, straight FK keyframes onto things. All of this is just being FK keyed here. It is still transparent to all of the switching. So if you do some animation in IKB and you want to come back and edit your rig, your animation is still preserved. If you want to do some FK animation in IKB, come back afterwards and switch out to maybe an IKFK system, you can do that, and the FK animation on Bones is preserved, and you still have the ability to switch back to regular IK at any point you want. So with all of that detail out of the way, let's just, you know, take a minute to build an actual full character rig here quickly, whilst I talk briefly, I hope, about one of the most central aims and the fundamental philosophy that I'm trying to bring through with RHiggit 2 here, and that's the idea of holistic rigging. One of the things that I talk about a lot in rigging training and, theories of rig design and so on and so forth is this idea of building a rig as a whole unit, a single machine. A simple example of such is stuff like the foot rig that we saw before, which also gets mentioned in the promo for my rigging training. As you're moving the character around, the foot will automatically fold on and peel off of the floor for you, or off of the IK goal space for you. It's not just an IK leg with this foot with a constraint system in it. The whole leg and foot system work together as one piece. It's a holistic leg, and that aids you during animation. But this same philosophy is true of entire rigs. And one of the, criticisms that's often been made of different modular riggers in, all sorts of different packages is the fact that they don't always do this. What they generally tend to do is to take these sub-rig parts, a leg, an arm, a spine, and just parent them together, which is great. It makes for a nice, quick rigging workflow, and it allows you to build rigs with, different parts and different layouts nice and easily. But what you generally do not get are rigs that function as a holistic unit. You wind up with something that is literally the sum of its parts and nothing more. The original RHiggit version 1 rigs were designed to be these whole units. It's one of the reasons that it was a template system rather than a modular system from the start. It is quite challenging and difficult to get an auto rigger to be able to, interpret how different pieces work together. But this is one of the advancements that I'm desperately trying to make in RHiggit 2. So with our little fella, or rather big fella here built, let's have a look at some of the stuff that's in RHiggit and the way it works that will, help us to do that. So let's look first at his foot system here. In the case of the Rex, he's got individual digits. He doesn't just have this, one big fat master toe bone. It is still there and it is operational. It is the parent of these little toe parts, essentially, you see. And so in that way, they are part of the leg rig. But it's not particularly, awe-inspiring the way that it works like that. It's nice enough, and of course you still get this effect of the reach behaviour and this lift off there coming from the toe pivot position. Let me just make that a bit clearer for you all here. And it's nice, but as I say, it's not particularly awe-inspiring. So let's try something else. We'll pop open our RHiggit panel, and I'm going to select the digits of the toes here, just one of each, hit edit part to change all of them, and we're going to make them spline controlled. We'll set selected, and what we have now are these spline parts that control the actual motion of the toes, or allow us to control the motion of the toes. So we can, grab these splines and it'll operate our toe, like this, basically. You can see the toe following the spline path there. We can see the ramifications this has on the actual inverse foot itself. Look, we now get this peeling action when the leg comes back. It doesn't just pivot up solidly. The toes will peel off as you would expect to get from this sort of a foot anatomy. Were these toes just sticking out of, a spine or a head or something, then they would adapt themselves to just sort of sitting there. As they are part of a foot rig, they recognise this and they adapt themselves accordingly. Want to see something really awesome? We can grab the IK goal actual, which is the actual IK item that the leg is goaling towards. That is, a child of this piece here. And of course, look what happens when we manipulate it. We get this lovely drag off of the toes like that within the system. So of course, when we animate our walk cycle, we'll animate the leg going forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards on our IK goal here. And then we can grab the IK actual, and as he takes each lifting step, we can pull the toes up and they will automatically peel off of the floor for us in this fashion, giving us a perfect, beautiful T-Rex walk cycle. Very easily as well. Just imagine the pain of having to go through and animate all of these toes by hand, or even just on IK or something of that nature. This is so quick to animate with. And of course, as you can see, they are tied in with that whole foot system now, so they're no longer following along solidly with the toe control here. this is able to act as a sort of a little nudge in them, so as you can give little nuances to the motion. And of course, as the foot tips side to side, you get the weight bearing on the toes and all of that sort of stuff. Wonderful way of working. You can experiment with these setups, find out what works well for a given character or creature and their anatomy, and it's just superb. Let's have a look at another example, head and neck. Okay, here we've got the head and neck, and they're both just, FK controlled here. So of course you turn the neck and he does neck stuff, and you turn the head and he does head stuff, and that's, really nice. One of the features of the rigs in RHiggit 1 was the head float control that allowed you to have the head oriented to a constant world space. So as the body moved around, the head was always pointing in a fixed direction. And one of the nice tricks that was built in there was the fact that the neck would respect that. So you didn't have this head floating around and you were constantly having to go back and correct the animation on the neck to fall in line with it. Of course, here in RHiggit 2, necks and heads are two separate parts. You don't add them as a whole unit. You may have a neck with a head connected to it, or you may not, because necks are a type of spine, along with tails and trunks and tentacles and so on. So here we've got our head selected, and I'll just go into Edit Part, and you'll see that we have the world space. We've also got FK world space switching if desired, but world space is good for us here, and we'll set selected there, and we get the world space controller pop up. And now what we see is that our head is controlled via this, and when his body does some sort of rotation like that, the head stays oriented in this constant space. But of course what we see is that when we twist it, the neck is following along as well, and of course that works bi-directionally. So when the body does some twist like this, the neck is also twisting to match with the head. And you can notice as well that the twist is distributed down the length of the neck. All of these neck bones are responding a little bit to give the full rotation over their length. As such, we can easily pose our head like this, and as we're turning and twisting the head around, the neck, at least on its twist, is automated for us. Of course, it's not the case that the neck would always follow on pitch or heading, and so we can still get manual control of the pitch or heading of the neck there, but the bank will always automate, so as we don't have to keep lining it back up manually. It's incredibly time saving during animation. This also of course works if the neck itself is switched. So let's take the neck, Edit Part, and we'll give this the IK method, which is a lovely little thing that you can do with spines. You have this goal item which you move around and the spine will point towards it, and when you twist and turn this goal item, the spine will flex, giving you this sort of hybrid pseudo IK-FK style system like this. And guess what? That ties in as well. So when I'm turning the head, the neck is responding along with, and I can use these controllers together to get exactly the sort of motion and posing out of the head that I want, and get an awful lot of automation going on whilst I'm animating, which makes things so much easier, either for blocking or for going right the way through to your finished polished animation. And this really does demonstrate the philosophy of what I'm trying to do with RHiggit. It's not bolting sub-rigs together. Well, it is obviously bolting sub-rig parts together. It's just parenting them together. But it's doing more than that. When you go through the rig fit, every time you go through the rig fit, the rig optimizes, as we already saw with the speed, but things also crosstalk to each other. So the neck says, okay, I'm a neck, I've got this kind of control system, and oh hey, there's a head here, you're my child. And the head goes, yes I am, I've got this control system. And the two go, okay, you've got this, I've got that, therefore if we constrain in this way, that will give the optimum animation control for the both of us. And like this, the rig parts will interact with one another, they will talk to each other, and they will always set themselves up to give you the best, most efficient, controllable, holistic rig that you can get. So that mostly covers, the auto rigger itself. Of course, I did say at the start that RHiggit 2 has a suite of tools with it. Obviously, the auto rigger is, the headline act, but there is other stuff going on. We've got, for instance, the rigging toolbox, which is, similar to various assign tools that are going about that help you to, quickly and easily do little rigging tasks. So of course, you can grab something and choose something else and, parent one to the other. And that just, goes off directly working in the viewport, so you don't have to navigate menus and, stuff like that. You've also got some of the more advanced options, like whether or not you're working in world mode for, setting up same as items, stuff like that. We've also got this fella here, which doesn't do too much at the minute. You must forgive the unfinished status of this panel. We are, of course, in beta here. But this is the auto tool, whilst these are manual tools up there. No different than you would get using the motion options panel. We also have automated rigging tools here, additional ones, such as this make constraint button, which will allow you to select one thing, select another thing, hit make constraint, and the two will just constrain to one another. Most of all, it has the blend option. So of course, if you're wanting to, take a prop and constrain it to a character's hand, but you want that constraint to be animatable, so as he can, pick it up, put it down again, then you choose blend, hit make constraint, and you will get all of the expressions and everything else set up for you. That way you don't have to worry about doing any of it yourself. You just click one button and boom, it's done. Very easy if you're an animator and you need this function in a scene and you're like, oh no, what's all this long, boring process that I have to go through to achieve it? Nothing. You just, select your items, click the button, and it's there and it's animatable, ready for you. So that's a really handy little toolbox that, is there with RHiggit tool, yet to be finished. Here's the other cool one, the animation toolbox, which again, please excuse the unfinished status of this panel. But you'll see that we have a few little tools in here already. One of which is the rig on, rig off button here. Let's see, we hit play here. We've got, two characters in our scene there all set up. Of course, one of them is a, big old deforming mesh there. And we're getting an okay frame rate. This goes a little bit faster. Of course, I should point out these frame rates when I'm not using the recording software. This scene will normally crack out about 24-25 frames a second. But if I am working with multiple characters in a scene and I am getting slow down, then I can select a global route for the character, hit rig off, and look at that, we get a speed bump as the entire rig shuts down. And you can do this for, as many characters as you want, just turn them all on and off at the click of a button. And so that will really help speed up things when you're working with multiple characters in a scene. As you can see though, there's a couple of other tools lurking in this panel, like the copy paste pose and load save motion. So let's have a little look at them, because I do believe you are going to like them a lot. So I'm just going to pop a little pose here onto my little biped guy. Of course, when you're animating, having the ability to copy and paste poses is a great boon. You've got a pose on one frame of a character being, turned or sat or stood in some way, and you move them and then you want to move him back there again on some other frame. It's much easier rather than posing him a second time, just be able to copy and paste the pose. And so of course the little copy paste pose tools, do that for you, which is really nice and lovely. But it will also work between characters. So I can take the global route, which again identifies the whole character for my biped here, hit copy pose, come over, select the global route for my T-Rex, hit paste pose, and look at what we get. It retargets to the character space. Our T-Rex is bigger, so we're getting a bigger pose. He has longer legs, we're getting spaced out legs in the pose. We get a proper retargeted pose copy and paste that works between characters. They've got totally different morphologies. This guy is using plantigrade limbs. This guy's got digitigrade limbs. This guy's got, of course, the spline controllers for the toes that are interacting with the foot system. He's got all of these extra spine joints going on and, completely different. Obviously, nothing's happened to the tail because our fellow over here did not have one. We can notice that there's a small error been introduced on the arms there. The arms pose of the T-Rex hasn't come out that well. But of course that's because if we look at them at base pose, our biped has the arms sticking out, whilst of course he has his arms hung down in front of him. So this is a reference pose, issue, but it is quite easily solvable, and there's plenty of controls in the rig for it. You could of course just repose the arm because it's not that big a deal, but of course you've got the offset at the top of the arm here, so if we point the offsets there so as they are sticking straight out, we look back at the initial pose there, that would be the offsets pointing out this away like this. So of course his base reference pose is matching more or less the biped, then you would get the correct pose coming through. So this retargeting is a reference pose based system. So what about the good old motion loading and saving? Well, let's come back and have a look at again that funny little walk cycle I did on my guy before there. Guess what? I can save his motion and load it back onto him some other time to reuse in some other scene. But oh no, just like the pose copy paste, this works between characters. So I'll select his global root. I will save his motion with just a nice simple little click there. I'll come over to my Rex root. I will hit load motion, and what do you know? We have got our animation retargeted from our little biped onto the T-Rex. Motion loading and saving with retargeting. And just look at that. Obviously, it's not quite perfect. One's a biped, one's a T-Rex, but a little bit of work, and that's easily, fixable. Everything, of course, is just on keyframes, so it's nice and easy to start, adjusting our paths of things to make the little changes, cleanups, whatever else. All the controls we had are still, fully active, so it's very easy just to go through and make the small adjustments into the motion so as we get the, correct result on the character that we have retargeted to. So there you go. Pose copying and pasting and motion loading and saving with retargeting between different characters. And that is mostly it. There's just one last little feature that I do want to show you because it is the icing on the cake, or at least it will be. This feature isn't anywhere near finished yet, and I'm not certain it's actually going to make it into the initial release. It's a tool that will probably come, as an extension later on a future version. But it is so cool that I did want to show you all just this little thing here. So we've got this little motion capture clip, right? And this is a little guy playing a bit of football, or American football here. And, he's just coming down there, the back of the line, and, he takes the hut there, and he gets the ball, and he tries to, sneak it past the line, and, doesn't quite make it. And, well, there you go, it's motion capture. There you have it. This motion capture, it's a bit of a mess. This comes from Maya originally, and you can look at the local rotation axes of these joints, and they're just all over the place. There's no real rhyme or reason to them. They are a bit, backwards and set against one another. And if I just select, say, everything here, and let's just turn them to Z-axis bones as we can really see. Look at there, they're not just all pointing off in one direction as you often get with FBX in LightWave. They're sort of all over the place. Look at these guys. Maya, Motion Builder, they don't really care about that sort of stuff, which is why it works fine in those packages. LightWave, sadly, isn't always so forgiving. But one of the lovely little tools that we've got coming here is, of course, a full motion capture retargeting system. And yes, it works across different character morphologies and so on. So there we've got our little guy doing his bit of motion capture football, and yes, we've got T-Rex again, and let's hit play, and we can see that we have got a full retarget from the motion capture to the T-Rex, and it's really, really quite nice. There goes T-Rex, and he's going for it, and he's got the ball, and no, he's been stopped and he's giving up. Exactly why it is that big old T-Rex here is having problems breaking through a defensive line, I have no idea whatsoever. I guess he is kind of skinny, and I don't know, he might have some sort of confidence issues going on. But he is a pretty big guy. I'm also not entirely sure why it is that I thought it'd be interesting to see, how T-Rex might play football if he were ever to take to playing football. No, wait, that's wrong, actually. I know exactly why I thought it would be interesting to find out. It's because a couple of months ago, my girlfriend bought me yet another book on dinosaurs to add to my ever-growing library of works on biology and vertebrate paleontology and so on and so forth. And for the past couple of months, I found myself just completely bloody obsessed with the ideas of, dinosaur locomotion and how they actually would have moved and behaved and so on and so forth. I think it's a combination of my inquiring mind and my sort of, aesthetics and instincts as an animator for the way that, living things like to move. And now I'm just babbling almost incoherently. So, it's probably time to recap, shall we? What have we got here in RHiggit 2? We've got a versatile, fully featured, interactive modular rigger that can adapt itself to all kinds of different character or creature morphologies and anatomies and physiologies. It's highly customizable in its layout, in its control systems. It's fast to switch and change and explore and experiment. It makes designing rigs a snap. It's all native, so it works with the full LightWave toolset, including IK boosts, and it comes with a whole range of tools for general animation and rigging workflow tasks such as constraining and pose copying and pasting and loading and saving and motion capture transfer. Hopefully in a shortly future version, inshallah, it shall be there. And to be honest, I think that's everything. Is it everything? Tell me if it's not. But for now, I guess that's it. So, thanks for watching.